Okay, what you're looking at here is the Mini2 padding press. It is used for padding paper for notes and other applications. It is commonly found in schools and art and printing departments. Designed to be used with 8.5 by 11 size paper and can handle up to a 12.5-inch stack of paper. As you can see here, it's pretty easy to use, very simple setup. If you look here on the bottom, when you pull it out of the box, it just has this board right here with 4 pads that sit on the countertop, and there are 4 screws right here that you will use to bolt this apparatus up here, the clamping mechanism, to the baseboard right here. It's just a matter of installing the 4 screws. The 4 screws up here are already pre-installed, and you're pretty much ready to go. The backboard here is already installed and ready to go out of the box, and essentially just sits on here, slides into place, and you're ready to start padding some paper. Now, like I said, this can be a very large stack of paper. What many people will do is they will take their leftover paper that they would just normally throw into the garbage can and get a large stack of it and pad it together using glue. And after they're done padding a large stack, they'll use a cutter to cut the padded paper into smaller stacks of paper to be used at different desks, different locations. Now, when you first get your stack of paper that you're going to pad, oftentimes it'll be disorganized. Now, you can try to jog that yourself by tapping it on a countertop. But I highly recommend, if it is highly unorganized and you are doing a lot of paper at a time, to use a paper jogger. This right here is the Jog Fast paper jogger. Essentially, you just set the paper in there, hit go, and it shakes the paper. It shakes the paper until it's basically squared up and ready to go. So we can take that paper that is now squared up and set it into the machine. Now, before I pad this paper, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this backboard and set this on the machine. And what this does is it just makes sure that the paper is flush against the back of that, so that when you're applying the glue, that it's being applied to a smooth, even surface. Now, before we do that, I'll show you the clamping mechanism. Essentially, it's a very simple clamping mechanism. And this is the mini padding press, but most padding presses work very similarly. This is one of the smaller units, but there are some large units that can do huge volumes of paper. This particular unit does not have a swivel. You just turn it around manually. If you're using it on a table that's open on all 4 sides, you just walk around to the other side to apply the glue. Some of the bigger units do have a swivel table with bearings that you just swivel it around and then glue the back of it. But again, this particular unit does not have that feature. Now, you notice a metal bracket here and here, and basically you just push them down and they will slide up and down on this rail. And it just depends on the size of paper that you're doing. Now I'm going to insert about an inch and a quarter stack of paper here. Now I'll put the back plate on here. Essentially, what I'm going to do is take the paper that's already been squared up in the jogging machine and set it down right here on the table. And you want to make sure that everything looks very squared up. So now that we have the paper on the table here, what we're going to do is there's a clamping block here that you'll set on top of the paper, and this just ensures that equal pressure is applied to the paper from the clamps, and you'll push down on the clamps here and slide them down pretty much until it touches the board. And then you just turn the clamps clockwise until it feels like it's fairly secure, not going anywhere. And now we can take that back off. Now if I turn that around, you'll notice that the paper is now squared up and ready to have glue applied. Now there are different kinds of glue that come in different sizes. The glue I'm going to be using comes in a 1-quart bottle. There are also 1-gallon bottles available. I'm going to be using red glue, but there's also white glue available. Now the glue has the consistency of just your standard Elmer's glue, and I'm going to be using a 1-inch brush to apply the glue. There are larger brushes available. There are 2-inch brushes available if needed. A wider brush would be a good idea if you're doing a large stack of paper. Another accessory that you may want to consider using is a padding paper counter, and I'll show you how that works. This is one right here. Essentially what you do is you put this inside of the device and you twist it clockwise to clamp it shut. And what you do is you just adjust that to the desired thickness of the pad that you're wanting to do. And once you tighten it down, you can go into the large stack, slide it in there, and get the thickness that you want every time. Especially if you're doing a large stack of paper, you can stick the paper counter in there, get the correct size that you want, and either pad it, or if the paper's already been padded, you can cut it down to the size that you want. Now, the paper counter that I'm showing you here is the 2-inch adjustable pad counter. There's also a 5-inch adjustable pad counter available if you want to pad thicker documents. Now I'll open the lid up here. And you will want to make sure that you're careful when applying the glue because it is liquid and you don't want to get it on your clothing. So once you have it on the brush, apply it to the back of your pad. If you need more, just apply more to the brush, making sure that it doesn't drip. And once it's applied, you will have to wait for it to dry. And you'll probably need to wait about 10 minutes or so for it to dry. If for any reason you feel there's not enough glue on there, you can apply a second coating. It is recommended to apply a liberal coating of the padding compound to the edge of the stack of paper with the brush. Now after you're done using the brush, the glue will dry on the brush, so I recommend washing it with water and letting it dry out. As I mentioned, this is the red padding glue. If you don't like having color on the edge of your pad, we do have white available as well, which will blend in very well with the paper. I've used the red in this instance so you can see better visually as to exactly how it works. So you're going to need to wait about 10 to 15 minutes for the glue to dry. If for any reason you think you didn't get enough on there, apply a second coat on there. Make sure you get enough glue on there because this is going to be holding all of the paper together. And a little bit will get on the machine, but it will not ruin it. And it's very easy to clean up. Just want to make sure you get enough on there again to hold the paper in place. And if you're doing a larger stack of paper, a larger brush is a definite must. Okay, so now the glue is dry. One way that you can tell it's dry is that it goes from more of a pink color to a red color. Once it is red, you can pretty much guarantee that it's dry. You can also touch it and see if it feels dry. Just a reminder, when you are applying the glue, you want to make sure you get enough on there so that it holds everything together. You don't want to get too much glue on there because regardless of how careful you are going to get a little on the machine, but if you get too much on the board, it may stick to the paper. So when you take the clamps up, it will stick to the paper, make it just a little bit harder to pull off of the padding press. So what I recommend is loosening the clamping mechanism here, and then pushing on these brackets and sliding them up. Take the clamp board out, and take your padded document out of the padding press. And you now have a padded stack of paper that you can peel sheets off as you take notes or whatever else you want to use it for. Now if you're doing just a small book of paper, you can use a piece of chipboard to provide for some added stability on the back of the notepad. Now obviously if you're doing a large pad of paper and you're cutting it down, that won't be a possibility, but if you're doing small pads, chipboard is something that many of our customers like to use with their padding press. Another thing that you can do is once you're done, you can use the blade to cut them apart, which is what I've done here. I've cut it down into 2 different stacks, and essentially all you really need to do is just kind of lift it up a little bit is what I recommend. Stick the knife in there so that it's just along the back, and just cut along. And it separates the pages and cuts that glue apart. So you can split a larger padded document into smaller pads.